Welcome, everybody, to another installment, another episode of the Manely Broncos Podcast. And as always, it is our goal to bring on about as many guests as we want. And in this particular episode, we have also another person that is doing a podcast, Alex Valdez, one of my good friends that I've met actually on training camp once, right? I mean, we met in training camp once, and I believe Sayer was there. And then you stop by. So he joins the show. Of course, as always, my esteemed colleague, Matty Moles, is back. He joins the program. You guys can follow him over on Twitter, at Matty Moles Pod. He's feeling very, should we say, ecstatic and happy today because his Oklahoma Sooners went through that 4 overtime victory over Texas, the Red River Showdown, where the Sooners came out on top. But Alex, here I am, right? Here I am. You joined the pod. How you doing, my man?
You're real, man. You're real.
I know. Even though you already met me once.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell the viewers you are a real person.
It's true. But how you doing, man?
I'm good. I spoke a little before we started recording, a little sore, but I'm good. That was a good game, Matty.
Yeah, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 overtime periods. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I felt like I had to vomit for about an hour and a half straight. It was pretty ridiculous. The last 3 minutes of regulation and then all 4 of the overtime periods, to include a third overtime period where both teams choked in the special teams and couldn't get a field goal done. I just, woo! So I'm glad that I don't have that much emotion until Monday. I get a full day to kind of recover from what was the Red River shootout or showdown or whatever they're calling it now.
You could call it a shootout on this one, really.
For real. So, fun fact, I actually went to the very first game in this series, had an overtime period used. So, OU ended up coming back and getting the W in that game, and I was actually there in person, full of funnel cakes and saltwater taffy and everything else. So it's pretty dope. Really sad I couldn't make it this year because of all the things going on, but man, hey, we beat Texas, and I'm having a good day.
So as we were talking about at the beginning of the show, Alex is also a fellow podcaster. And Alex, you do a show where you are a co-host over on Broncos Brawl, right? So where can they follow you over on Twitter and as well as the show as well, so that for people that are just podcast, fiends, should we say, just absolutely love listening to.
Sure. I mean, we're all a big family here, so yeah, definitely hit me up on Twitter, _Broncos, if you're not already, and definitely hit us up on Broncos Brawl too. We have 2-time Super Bowl winning tight end Byron Chamberlain with the Broncos, so that always helps bring in some guys because otherwise it's just boring me over there and my new co-host Noah. So, but yeah, definitely hit us up. We're gonna be covering the Broncos just like we are here. Not too much different, just some different voices.
Yep, different voices and maybe some different opinions, which, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to hear some different opinions every once in a while as well. So this isn't exactly like that one station, locally here where, they start, where they start drumming things down or potentially, keeping that same topic over and over and over and over and over and over. So it gets tiring after a while, but we certainly have a very exciting show today, of course, where we're going to be recapping what happened in the Jets game and then preview everything that is going to potentially happen in the Patriots game. And I also want to give a huge thank you to Play Like a Jet for doing the recap with me over on the Manely Broncos podcast. You guys can go check that out on all of our locations, Spotify, the Apple Podcasts. We are even on YouTube as well. If you guys want to go find us out on YouTube, as well. So it is. We are pretty much everywhere that you guys feel free to listen to us. We are everywhere. So today, since we didn't get a chance on the Broncos side of things to talk about everything that unfolded in the Jets game, I guess we should just start with the first elephant of the room, and that was the quarterback. We ended up with a new quarterback. There was some speculation before the game and everything. Are they going to be rolling with Jeff Driscoll? Are we going to be seeing the boat? Are we going to be seeing Blake Bortles? Where exactly are we going to be going to as far as the Broncos quarterback goes? And, well, as it turned out, they went ahead and rolled with Brett Rypien. We did see Jeff Driscoll on, I believe it was one play, and it was a zone read play. But, over the course of the game, it looked like Brett Rypien, he showed very good flashes that he belongs in the NFL. But during that second half, it just seemed like it just unraveled for the Boise State Bronco.
Yeah, it feels like he, got a little maybe overconfident, or he was forcing some things later in that game. But yeah, man, he had it rolling. I liked, I liked how they let him just grip it and rip it, if you want to, with Rypien's name there. But yeah, I liked how they opened it up. I'm not going to harken back to my podcast, but Byron on our pod definitely wanted them to open it up, and I had asked him, was that something that it was maybe a Driscoll thing, was it a Shermer thing, or was it a there's not enough time with the O-line to really push the football down the field? And man, it must have just been a Driscoll thing, because wasn't too many plays into that game where we saw that, excuse my language, that badass throw down the sideline to Jerry Jeudy. So yeah, man, you can take a lot from that game where, you saw a first time starting quarterback play against maybe not the best of defenses, but I thought he played exactly how you thought he would.
Yeah, gripping and ripping, as I also like to call him. You could just tell he was processing the information. He was dissecting what the plays were a lot quicker than what Driscoll was. He was getting the ball out of his hands quickly. He was making a decision. Now, a couple of times those decisions were the wrong decision, but he made the wrong quickly. And that's the best friend that you can have for an offensive line, especially one that had been struggling. Driscoll took something like, 19 quarterback hits. That's
an
a
insane
lot
number
of abuse. That's a
and they
lot
weren't all
of
legal
abuse.
either.
No. But the thing is, having a quarterback get the ball out of his hands and get it into playmakers' hands quickly, and being able to dissect what the defense is doing quickly is just going to allow timing to happen. It's going to allow people to feel comfortable with their roles. People aren't going to be trying to push too much. You just do what you need to do. The quarterback's going to get you the ball. He's going to get it out of there. Lineman, just fire out of your stance. Just be an obstacle for the edge rushers a little bit, and then the ball's going to get out of there. So it was really nice to see some complimentary football on both sides for that. And another one of the best friends that you could have for a young quarterback is a really solid running game. And I was really excited to see what Melvin Gordon was able to do. Now, granted, some of his statistics were padded a little bit with that 43-yard scamper at the end of the game, but it all counts the same. And it was during a time when they knew we were going to be running the football and they still couldn't stop us. So there was just a lot of goodness to take. And guys, we scored 37 points in this game. What? Yeah. Do they think they're playing in the Big 12 here? What's going on with the Broncos offense? I know it was against the Jets, but short week, right? It's tough. Those Thursday night games tend to be ugly for a reason. A lot of times it's because it features two ugly teams, and we were definitely one of those. But man, there was a lot of positives to take from this game, and it did start with the quarterback, even though he played, just as you said, as expected in his first start.
And there are probably some cases where he probably outperformed like what we would expect, and that was probably at the beginning point of the game where he was gripping and ripping it. But I think that to come to the point of, as you would expect, it at the same time and at the same token, it came at a very frustrating point in the game because, and I think that this is also kind of like a twofold part to kind of unravel. But when the Broncos were up 27-16, I will say that I felt pretty comfortable with where they were at as a team, but then to lose the lead, and this unfortunately falls on Brett Rypien because if I'm being honest, with everything that unfolded at the beginning point of the game, and this is, like I said, it's like a maybe a bunny trail or how things are unfolding as far as my point here. But with the way the defense played in the early on point of that game, it wasn't pretty. And then immediately when Sam Darnold has his really long run, it's like the defense clicked, the defense snapped, and they played a much, much cohesive football as far as a defensive unit after that particular point. So when they got to 16, I felt very confident. And unfortunately, the two interceptions that three interceptions really, but the two key interceptions that he threw swung momentum massively to the Jets. One was a pick six, and then another one was another key turnover. So my point is, over the course of the game, I felt very comfortable with it being 27-16, but I think also it really shows where the Broncos as a team could go based on their mental toughness as a young team, even without Drew Lock, for them to be down 28-27, regardless if the Jets were a really bad football team and whatnot, it still showed a lot for them to not just go out and drive down the field and put 30 on the board, but to go down there and put that final dagger in there with Brett Rypien blocking former Nebraska Cornhusker Lamar Jackson, who got his ankles burned by Wisconsin running back Melvin Gordon, former running back Wisconsin running back Melvin Gordon. It was just, I guess it was just a mixed emotion feeling right there, a rehashing of some really bad memories of Nebraska and Wisconsin, and me getting happy that Melvin Gordon put the dagger in the end zone for the Broncos. But so, like I said, a lot to unpack with what I was talking about. But as far as a young football team, I was really, really impressed with how the Broncos really responded once they were down 28-27.
You know what we haven't really mentioned here is the fact that game did get to, it did come down to the wire toward the end of the fourth quarter. And I am going to shoot straight, as a guy who is a fan of a team with Vic Fangio as the coach. Man, just how many times are you just like hoping that they just hold on, or, there's not a late hit on a quarterback or whatever it is. I mean, we saw that too many times last year, and finally, it was just awesome to see them put up points as much as they did, and two, close out a game. So, man, I was stoked.
Yeah, as at the beginning of the podcast, I'm a Sooners fan, and this is 3 weeks in a row my college team has blown double-digit leads, and we just made a great hobby of that last season as the Broncos. So to be able to see us stay mentally tough, and it looked like this team was getting ready to break through, like against Pittsburgh, right? The Tampa Bay game, I'm throwing that one out. That one was just a rough game from start to finish, but that Pittsburgh game we business being in, and yet we still fought and we had a chance. If we could have converted 3rd and short or 4th and short and kept the drive going. That's not necessarily on Fangio. We got to execute a little bit and stuff, but it was just nice to see them mentally break through. And now, the season looks a lot different at 1-3 than it does at 0-4, right? And we have a chance potentially. I don't want to get the cart ahead of the horse, but we have a chance in our next game to potentially steal one with all that's going on, the current environment. And if we can go to 2-3, heading into our game against Miami next week with a chance to maybe get back to 500 before we face the Chiefs in our first matchup, like, season is in front of us at that point. So, obviously, it's weird to say in week 4 that you have a must win, but it was in fact a must win if the Broncos were going to have any type of playoff aspirations. And after we threw that second pick in our territory and Sam Ficken, that Ficken kicker for the Jets, knocked in another field goal. It seemed like he was on the field a lot to give them a 1-point lead. It was like, here we go again. But Brandon McMoney goes down, and he shows why we gave him an extension and hits a 53-yard field goal. And then, of course, the dagger that you mentioned. So mental toughness, I will say this. Fangio maybe doesn't handle clock management and timeouts the way that I would like him to. Maybe sometimes we get a little cute with our offensive play calling and things can stall a little bit. But our team is mentally tough. And if I got to pick any type of attribute to have for my team that I'm going to root for until it says 0-0-0-0 on the clock, I want my team to fight until it says 0-0-0-0 on the clock. So we definitely have that in spades. Who would you guys give the game ball to? If you give a game ball to anybody for this game, who are you giving it to?
Go ahead, Alex.
Well, that's cheap. You just throw it right to me so you can get some time to think about it. Man, Rypien didn't exactly have the best game, but, I mean, he kept us in the game. He put some points on the board, and it's pretty easy to give it to the quarterback, right. So I won't. I'll give it to some guys that aren't as heralded as everyone else is giving them, because everyone's going to give it to Bradley Chubb. Welcome back to the 2020 season, Bradley Chubb. I mean, the guy just exploded this game. But, Josie Jewell, the guy was able to, rush the passer more than he's ever done. And, I mean, he got to him twice, got a bunch of pressures, and he was all over the field. So defensively, I'll give it to Josie. And offensively, I mean, I'm stuck between, DeMar Dotson, guy going out there and just like solidifying that offensive line for once. I mean, it didn't look great, but it looked a lot more serviceable than it did the week before. If we're just going to give it to Patrick, I mean, the guy was a number one wide receiver. I mean, the guy looked electric every time he was on the field. So, I'll give it to Timmy P.
Some really good options. And I think that for Josie, that was and we could probably say, of course, because that seems to always be the narrative, right? We always say, "Oh, they're playing against the New York Jets." Well, I mean, sure. I mean, and they're probably saying that, of course, all over Twitter with Bradley Chubb. It was the Jets. They went through like three tackles, and Adam Gase probably should not even have dressed Mekhi Becton. That's, of course, a topic for another day. But, he still performed. He still performed, arguably, statistically, his best game ever as a Denver Bronco. And if there was ever a game where nobody was playing a football game, and it was a Thursday night game, and you want to showcase the fact that you still are a potential game wrecker, a guy that is the heir of replacing Von Miller, that was a legit opportunity. He did that. So I think that, for him, he's probably, of all the guys, maybe aside from Tim Patrick, those guys that are most deserving of the game ball. I think for the sake that it was his first touchdown pass, I will give it to Jerry Jeudy, because he gave it potentially the moment of the game for probably everything that unfolded in the season with Jerry Jeudy and stuff. Just him staring down Pierre Desir, and then listening to Steve Smith's commentary after the game about Pierre Desir, despite all the interceptions and everything. Just it made it just that much sweeter to hear Steve Smith talk about it and him posterizing. And I guess to probably say that even though I'm giving him a game ball, and despite the fact that we did put up 37 points, it was a little bit of a head-scratcher why Jerry Jeudy only caught 4 passes or was even targeted 2 times or 4 times, or at least 4 times in total of that entire game. So that was probably a little bit of a head-scratcher, but he got the job done. And I would imagine he'd get a little bit more targets, obviously, this next game against the Patriots. I will actually give a game ball to Pat Shurmur. I will give the game ball to Pat Shurmur. One of the things that, I don't know if you guys touched on this over at the Broncos Brawl, I'm going to give the game ball to Shermer because I think that even though it was the New York Jets, he was still coming home to New York. And I think that, for him and for his pride and being the former head coach of the New York Giants, he wanted to go out and show out to that New York media that, you know what, I still got this. I am still a capable coach in the National Football League. You guys may have let me go as the head coach of the New York Giants, but you know what? I want to at least show that I can run a capable offense with a quarterback that probably would not even be starting if it wasn't for our quarterback, Drew Lock, getting hurt. I want to show that I can still run this offense and run it effectively. So I think that probably, aside from Bradley Chubb and Tim Patrick, I'm going to go out and give a game ball to Pat Shermer.
Those are all solid options. My game ball is going to go to Broncos legend Joe Flacco, 2 for 2, 16 yards. Way to go, Joe. No, I mean, it was really weird seeing him in a Jets uniform, almost as weird as it was seeing him in a Broncos uniform last year.
That's right.
So weird. Sam Darnold, though, man, that guy's a baller, right? Like, he's
free him.
I feel so bad for what he has to put up with in New York. Oh my gosh, if that guy had like Cliff Kingsbury and had all those weapons and stuff and was playing in Arizona or something like that, like, man, his whole career could look a lot different. And I say the same thing for Daniel Jones too, staying in the same city. But I also got to give it up to Jeff Smith. Came out of nowhere and torched us, right? Like, those crossing routes were a problem. I'm really interested to see how Michael Ojemudia is able to kind of tighten that up, especially going against New England in this next game, who they use nothing but drag routes, it seems like, and a lot of mesh. So that'll be very interesting. But Jeff Smith kind of came out of nowhere and really blew up the slate. As far as fantasy goes, I didn't win any money on DraftKings because I didn't have Jeff Smith in my lineup, but that's cool. So that takes care of the Jets. I got to give it to Melvin Gordon. He's going to get my game ball on the offensive side because, one, you guys took everyone else, and two, everybody knew that we were going to be relying on Melvin Gordon a ton. The guy carried the ball 23 times. He was targeted 3 times, had 2 catches, so 25 touches for the guy. He was basically half of our offense, and he ended up paying it off, 2 touchdowns, right? I would say that he has atoned for that fumble week 1 with his performance and what he did for us on Thursday Night Football, what seems like it was forever ago. So way to go, Melvin Gordon. A lot of people hated the signing. It looks pretty stinking good right now with Philip Lindsay's injury that he's been having. Without Melvin Gordon, we don't win this game on Thursday. So I give it to him. I'm also going to give one to the guy I mentioned before. I'm giving it to Brandon McManus. The guy 3 for 3 on field goals, 54 long, 4 for 4 on extra points. And extra points nowadays aren't a gimme. You see so many kickers miss extra points, and I know that the score looks a little different, but we needed every single point in this game, and he locked it in. You know, he had the miss last week, and then he just comes right back, and especially that field goal to give us the lead there towards the end of it, a 53-yard field goal. So props goes to Brandon McMoney. You earned your money, and you get a game ball.
Is it fair to say, now obviously this is kind of bringing back the year 2015, going back to the future and hopping in the DeLorean a little bit, but is it fair to say that Brandon McManus might be the Broncos' unsung MVP this year? At this particular
unsung
point,
or not, and maybe not even unsung. I mean, I picked him to be the MVP of the game, as Maddie attributed to him before the game. Obviously, you know, if the Broncos had won, it was going to be because of Rypien and, you know, a couple other factors. But you aren't in most of these games without that big, you know, maybe what is it? Zerline has the nickname of Legatron, but man, McManimal has one hell of a leg. So
we see it so often in the NFL, right? Those kickers that are just absolute weapons, whether it's on kickoffs or just normal normal field goals. I mean, back when Steven Gostkowski was automatic with New England, I mean, he was an absolute weapon with New England, to where you roll him out and he was an automatic bucket, basically, as a kicker for hitting field goals. Justin Tucker was the same way with the Ravens, back when he was automatic with the Ravens. And I think that with Brandon McManus, really his only issue had been the inconsistencies a little bit. And despite the fact that statistically he's probably one of the better kickers, if not the better kicker in Broncos history right now, through his first 5 years, he does still deal with the inconsistencies. But, I mean, overall, he's got an incredible leg. I mean, if we're being honest, you don't shove Matt Prater out the door unless you are a pretty darn good kicker in the NFL. And unfortunately, it was due to personal stuff with the whole reasons why Matt Prater is not a Denver Bronco long-term, or not here still right now. But still, I mean, Brandon McManus is a great kicker, and, I mean, he was the unsung MVP of 2015, and he very well might be the MVP right now. So transitioning now to the Patriots game a little bit. They're dealing with their own injuries, and for the Broncos' sake, even for our own the injury's sake, we didn't touch on the quarterback injuries, but it's probably fair to talk about both of those quarterback injuries with COVID, with Cam Newton testing positive for COVID, being on the COVID reserve list. Drew Lock, we still don't know, and I think that this is of course the major wild card here. Obviously, Albright went out and tweeted the expectation as of right now is Brett Rypien, although the Broncos officially tweeted out that Drew Lock is questionable, so it still seems like there's some mind games being thrown around on both sides of Cam Newton and Drew Lock. But right now, where do we stand, guys? I mean, are we going to be locking and rolling on Monday night with the time change at 3:00? Or are we going to be, expecting Brett Rypien to come out on Monday night afternoon? What? Oh.
So, real quick, I'll get the rundown. Joe Jones is questionable with the knee. Mike Purcell is questionable with the knee. Atachu, Fant, and Hamler are all out. And Drew Lock with the right shoulder is questionable. And then as far as New England goes, Edelman is questionable with the knee. Isaiah Wynn, Butler, and Shaq Mason are all questionable. And then, of course, Cam Newton with the COVID situation. So, Alex, are we going to see Drew Lock on Monday actually on the field?
I really hope not. I mean, if we're going up to this game and he's not anywhere close to 100%, I'm talking 95%. I mean, this is a guy that you are, hoping is your franchise quarterback for years to come. I see no reason that you want to throw him out there versus a Bill Belichick defense that knows this guy's shoulder is 80%, 90%, whatever it is. I have no want to go toe-to-toe with Bill Belichick with Drew Lock. As much as that sounds like I'm throwing a sacrificial lamb to the Wolves out there with Brett Rypien, I'm sorry, you're a third-string quarterback for a reason. You go out there and take the hits that I don't want my franchise quarterback on a hobbled right arm with no scary slot receiver in Hamler, no, should be a Pro Bowl tight end in Fant. And, I mean, obviously we know what's going on with Sutton. Man, I don't want to do that to my guy. So, let's give him one more week. Let's see what Rypien has and see if he can carry us to, some kind of weird victory again.
And let's be honest. I mean, if he's being thrown to the Wolves or rolled out there as being active, it means that the Broncos 100% believe he is healthy enough to play. That's the sole reason why he would be active. But I will say this, and granted, it's just clips, and it's just clips that we've seen from Andrew Mason. It's clips we've seen from the Denver media that have been tweeting out about Drew Lock practicing the last 3 days, I believe. Here, he's looked good. I mean, he's looked good throwing the ball, and for a hurt shoulder, a hurt right shoulder, your throwing arm shoulder, he does look really good. And I think that the pain threshold and everything that the Broncos they're probably their biggest worry. Is he willing to handle the punishment? Is he willing to handle getting hit again? And are the Broncos themselves willing to roll him out there and willing to have him take those kinds of hits? I think that's going to be the true test. So if they do roll him out, I think that's going to end up being probably the key as far as why they don't want him. Well, multiple reasons. They want him to be 100% healthy, and two, they don't know whether or not he could take the full brunt of the hit. The Cam Newton thing still is a little bit fascinating because there's still this glimmer chance, I guess, that he could play on Monday night, despite the fact that he hasn't even practiced all week. And granted, in a normal year, if you've not practiced at all during the week, you're not playing.
Yeah. But it's Cam Newton, right? How much practice do you need to go be the leading running back for your team and goal line package? Just give me all the big nasties up front and let's go. You don't really need to practice that a ton. Cam Newton at the point where he's at is fine, and it looks like he's got plenty of chemistry with, Damiere Byrd and especially with N'Keal Harry in case Edelman's not able to go. I think that it would be fine. It's pretty common, actually, for a lot of veterans to, Julio Jones has been doing it for half of his career, not practicing during weeks and then just giving it a go on Sunday. So I don't necessarily know that it's going to be that big of a deal if Cam ends up being able to play, the fact that he hasn't been able to practice all week. I will say this. If we decide to roll Drew Lock out, and we have to give him a shot in his shoulder, little painkiller, I don't want the Chargers doctors anywhere near Drew Lock. I don't even know how you messed that up. Oh, sorry, bro, I was trying to give you a shot, but I punctured your lung. I don't even know how that freaking happens. But all jokes aside, I honestly think that it's probably going to be Rypien to get the start on a short leash. And they'll bring Drew Lock in if it looks like Rypien's just not going to be able to open up the offense. They're certainly not going to Driscoll. I don't know if they would go to Bortles ahead of Drew Lock in this game. Like I said, it seems like it's a must-win. Dropping to 1-4 with the Chiefs game just over the horizon, it's that's pretty tough sledding this early on in the season, especially if Cam Newton can't go. This seems like a game that you absolutely have to steal on the road. So I don't know. I think it's probably going to be Drew in the 2 spot. He'll be on deck, and if Rypien just has some of those throws that we saw in the late second half of last game, then probably Drew's going to go in there, and we'll see what we got.
But see, here's the thing though, that would be going against Vic Fangio and his comments though that he made, because he did say that if Drew Lock is active or he dresses, he's going to play. So and maybe that's just the game of chess that he's playing with Belichick. I don't know, but my guess is if you're making him the number 2 quarterback, that's in essence making him active. You're still looking at the potential scenario where he's not on the inactive list. He's there. He's able to play. He's said multiple times that, if you roll Drew Lock out there, they believe that he's 100%. So, I don't know. That would kind of go against everything that Vic Fangio said.
Yeah, if you are healthy enough to play, you're expected to be 100%. That being said, what's the status with Stephon Gilmore?
He's out.
He also had COVID.
Right.
He's out. That only helps us considering we're playing with a rookie and a second string wide receiver. So I'll take that all day. But is this the game where you want to introduce the league to Albert Ocho Cinco Okuebudan?
Maybe.
I think you have to.
Yeah,
I don't think you have a choice,
right?
Fan out, right?
Right, and as much as myself gave Howerman, his just due when it came to are you going to be a dynamic tight end or not? And they brought in Vanette, and I was just thinking, okay, well, this guy is just Howerman 2.0. Man, I would beg for Howerman right now because I just don't see where Vanette is making a big splash on the field right now. So, Jake Butt is your number 1 tight end, or is it your halfback Beck? what is going on at tight end? Is now the time to introduce Big Ocho Cinco?
Well,
booty, rocket everywhere.
Well, so then let me say that, is that also in favor of starting Drew Lock? We know the chemistry between Lock and Albert O. I mean, we know that it would almost, and obviously they probably have not had a relationship since college, right? So, I mean, it would be like a year removed from them having that relationship. But, I mean, at least on the surface, they have a previous working relationship. So, would it be worth throwing out there that maybe to start Drew Lock? If that's the case, if you're going to roll out Albert O, make him at least comfortable?
I mean, Brett Rypien and him played together on third string first in training camp.
Right.
We're trying to make some chemistry.
I know. I'm trying to
here.
I know. I'm trying to more like make major news out of something on that one. But no. But clearly, though, I think that the debut of Albert O is coming. I mean, the debut of Albert O is coming, and it clearly appears to be Monday. And honestly, when Noah Fant comes back and whatever happens with Albert O, I think you'll be looking at a permanent stay there. No matter what happens, I mean, you'll be looking at it. But it's funny you mentioned Hireman, Alex, because I was a huge fan of him. I thought he had still talent there to be a very capable tight end. If you were to tell me between Van Nett and Hireman, I probably would tend a little bit more to Hireman. But at the same time, when you see the contract, you see everything that you see there with the contract of Van Nett, you're like, okay, well, that seems like a pretty obvious replacement there for Hireman. And then you start to see what the product is on the field and everything that we've seen right now from Nick Van Nett. It's not been pretty. I mean, it's not been good. And I think that it's just unfortunate. And obviously, I don't know. I've not seen where I don't think Hireman was picked up. I don't know whether he's been picked up or not. So he may still be on the street. So the Broncos feel like they want to go out and maybe test the waters a little bit, bring him back again. Maybe they want to do that. I don't know. But, I think that's been one of the positions in particular, the tight end position. If we're being completely honest, maybe of all the disappointments, whether it's been the growing rookie pains of center with Lloyd Cushenberry, Dalton Reisner maybe entering a sophomore slump right now at left guard. I think that it's probably fair that the tight end position after Noah Fant has been probably one of the biggest disappointments.
Yeah, let me just go on record and say you don't need a lot of chemistry to throw the ball up to somebody who's 6'5". It's
true.
And who has all kinds of speed and essentially a really large catch radius. Now, he doesn't run the best routes, but that's exactly where he's going to be then. I think that I think this would be a great game to open him up. Look, I play a lot of fantasy sports, and so you kind of look at the match within the match. The tight end position isn't really where New England's been getting got this year, and really it hasn't been the running game either. It's been wide receivers being able to actually punish the secondary for New England, which sounds extremely odd. One of those games is a little inflated because they played let Russ cook, and all of those wide receivers, I think 5 different receivers caught touchdowns that game for Russell Wilson, but that's the formula. And so if that's going to be the formula, you might need guys to kind of help block. Maybe you're not really using the tight end to stretch the field a ton. Maybe just enough to keep the safeties home, and then you're just torching those corners on the outside, especially if Gilmore is out in this next game. So Tim Patrick, could he have a repeat, another 6-catch, 100-yard and touchdown performance? Could Jerry Jeudy end up being the guy that finally breaks through and gets 100 yards and multiple touchdowns? Hamilton has kind of been there but hasn't.
Yeah.
He can do work in the slot too. We have weapons still, even with Sutton on IR, even with Noah Fant being banged up, and he's obviously not going to be right for a while. I just think, and of course Hamler, maybe we'll see him consistently in his sophomore season. I'm not really expecting him to play a ton the rest of the year. That hamstring is just so problematic since the combine. But Tim Patrick, man, like, this is his time to shine. And we saw he has all the ability to if he just gets the opportunity. So with that being said, like, we spent a lot of time talking about the tight end. What do you guys think about our wide receivers on the outside with either Rypien, who's proven he could throw the ball downfield and is willing to, or even with Drew Lock, say, maybe not at 100%?
Depends, because I think that we all know that aside from a tight end, the best friend to a quarterback is a running game. And if we're going to talk about potential injuries, the Broncos are getting back Phillip Lindsay. That's the expectation. Phillip Lindsay will be back for the game on Monday night afternoon, whatever, at 3 o'clock Mountain Time. But, I mean, so maybe the Broncos do some running game and just run heavy with Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon. But at the same time, I would imagine with Stephon Gilmore out and being that a lot of responsibility will thus be placed on Jonathan Jones, I'm guessing they probably want to air it out and probably test the waters a little bit. And I would not be surprised if that's something the Broncos do. I mean, we probably would expect maybe a few runs. Maybe that's something the Patriots would expect, but I would at least try and air it out and get Brett and get Rypien comfortable. He clearly showed he can throw the deep pass and everything. Still, I would kind of keep it comfortable for him, make it so that he can get those timing throws down and everything. So I think that there is a chance that Jerry Jeudy has his breakout game, even though you could slightly, I guess, say that the Thursday night game was a breakout game because he did have the touchdown. But I would almost not even be surprised if we see another huge Tim Patrick game, because even despite the fact that Jerry Jeudy's a rookie, it would not surprise me if he still garners quite a bit of attention on that secondary to where it opens up Patrick. So I don't think anything would surprise me. And I think that it's funny you bring up Hamilton, because Hamilton's one of those guys that he's there. Like, it feels like he's there. Like, he's almost at that point where he can make a huge moment of the game happen, or he's always open, or, you know, it's the hands issue with Hamilton or something. But I don't know, Alex. It seems like they could either go running game. They could, as we're saying, they could do a run heavy now that they're going to get Phillip Lindsay back, which is huge, by the way. I mean, it's huge getting Phillip Lindsay back, because maybe we start using him in the passing game as well. So I think that it's going to be very interesting to see what the Broncos do with their wide receivers, or let alone Lindsay in the passing game.
I think they got to keep it. They have to keep this game close, because you start becoming predictable and you start having to lean on, your passing game and your third string quarterback. I mean, that's just a recipe for disaster. Just ask Jeff Driscoll in that Tampa Bay game. So, yeah, man, obviously, your running game is vital, and I would not be surprised to see Lindsay out-touch Gordon this game, just considering Gordon has been the workhorse for, pretty much the entire season right now. The guy, as Maddie mentioned, the guy is just dragging this offense along that contract looks like a steal right now, as much as people want to hate on it. Mm-hmm. But with Gilmore out, you have to imagine, and Patrick, kind of coming onto the scene, you have to imagine that they're going to start shading some safeties over to help with, if Patrick catches a bomb down the sideline, which opens up the middle, which, at that point, are you talking about a tight end, or are you talking about a slot wide receiver? And Broncos don't have either one of those guys that you can rely on right now. As much as we love Jake Button, as much as we think that Hamilton is right there, I agree with you. The guy is always open. He's just not catching the ball.
Right. He's
there.
He's there.
Yeah, he really is. So I would, I'd look at guys like Spencer. I'd look at guys like Beck to just wreck the inside. And, maybe this is one of those games where Gordon is your slot wide receiver, and he just runs, those Texas routes coming out of the backfield.
Could even be Lindsay too.
Yeah.
At least coming from Colorado, and I realize that there's been some hate everywhere on Twitter and everything that Lindsey can't catch the ball. I want to remind people that Lindsey, one of the biggest and one of his biggest strong suits coming out of Colorado was he was a feature back that could catch passes and be a dynamic threat out of the backfield as a receiver. So it's not like he's new to this and it's a new experience that he's experiencing all of this for the first time. No, he is a very capable running back out of the backfield that can catch passes and everything. So maybe it is a Lindsey, and because Gordon at the same time is also a very gifted a really gifted receiver out of the backfield as well. So, and we also saw at the point before Lindsey got hurt that Shurmur, and maybe we'll certainly see if that changes because of the Lindsey injury, but we saw Gordon and Lindsey on the field at the exact same time, and whether it looked bizarre on the surface, we all know that it's a defensive coordinator. The more things you have to key on, it makes it a little bit complicated, and it opens up something for someone on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing about Belichick is he always takes away the other team's number one option. Like, that tends to be his MO, and that's why it's so frustrating when you've got like a star player like a Cortland Sutton or somebody like that. Like, you're going to have your ancillary pieces step up. I don't know. I mean, I would say Judy has the biggest game-breaking ability, probably, like if I'm on the outside looking in to what the Broncos could do. If I'm not selling out to stop Gordon in the running game, then I'm making sure that I have number 10 under lock and key all game long, right? So absolutely. I don't know that Bill Belichick is going to scheme his defense around Tim Patrick. It just feels weird to say that he would. It would make an awful lot of sense for him to, because it seems like Patrick actually, the bigger bodied guy, the guy that we're using downfield a ton along the sideline. I know Judy caught that one. Like, just looking at where we're using guys, it would make sense for him to scheme Patrick away and then be able to kind of run zone and just kind of let Rypien make mistakes on his own. Fun fact, Brett Rypien was one of the most accurate quarterbacks last week when facing pressure, according to Next Gen Stats. I'm a nerd, and so I looked this stuff up. That actually that makes me feel good, because the New England Patriots, if they don't just drop back and play a shell defense, they're going to disguise a lot of pressures and they're going to come get you. And he actually completed like 23% of his passes above expectation for where the pass was and how the pressure was coming, according to Next Gen Stats. Granted, it was the Jets defense, but that makes me feel really good if we go with Rypien, that he's going to be able to diagnose things, like I said, quickly and get the ball out where it needs to be. I can't find his chart right now, but that bodes well. I don't know how it would be with Drew Lock, with how that would look. Hopefully, Drew would be fine, but I honestly got to say, like, Deshaun Hamilton might really be the X factor in this game underneath, and a lot of stuff up the middle of the field, and you just kind of hope that the tight ends can chip a little bit of that edge rush and then go out and try to find spots if they drop into a zone and all of those things. And if there are combo routes or if they have option routes that, hopefully Rypien and the receivers are on the same page. He doesn't throw a zig when the receiver zags, but I mean, Deshaun Hamilton, this is your chance to shine, man. I think you're the X factor in this game on Monday.
It seems that way, right? I mean, it legitimately seems like Deshaun Hamilton could be that opportunity. Now, objectively, let's kind of look at this objectively. If you're Bill Belichick, and Maddie mentioned that Belichick, and we all know this, that he notoriously takes away your number one option. Well, let's look at this objectively. Who exactly is the Broncos' number one option?
Well, you have one guy that you're thinking can be a Pro Bowl, borderline All-Pro talent at wide receiver, and that's, of course, Deshaun Hamilton. So,
yeah.
No, I mean, it's obvious. I mean, it is Jerry Jeudy. So, obviously, it shouldn't be too hard to take away a rookie. You disguise some coverages. You mix up some zones. You hand off. Sometimes you just need the linebacker in the middle, just showing himself. But in the end, it's going to be Judy. So can Patrick, can Spencer, can Hamilton all come out and, make him pay for it? And, you look at every time anyone plays and beats the Patriots, it's not because, they out-schemed him. You are not going to out-scheme the GOAT. Sorry, Bill Walsh, but, we are talking about probably the greatest head coach of all time. And this guy is always going to put up a top 10 defense or borderline. So you are going to have to out-talent him, or you're going to have to really capitalize on any mistakes that they throw out there. So you see a safety shading inside, you better take that over the top. So, yeah, man, it's going to be Jerry Jeudy, and someone else is going to have to make him pay.
Yeah, and I will say this, for Tim Patrick, he's not one of those guys that will statistically or go out there and put up those 1,000-yard seasons, but he's those guys. And now, granted, I speak like from a personal experience from the Nebraska side of things with Quincy Enunwa. Quincy Enunwa was one of those guys that got better once he actually went to the New York Jets. But a guy that he's not flashy, he's not one of those guys that is just going to be a top 10 wide receiver, but he gets the job done every single time. He clearly has the size. He's a big body type receiver, but he's going to get the job done. He's going to get the job done, and I think that it wouldn't surprise me if Tim Patrick... honestly, it would not even surprise me initially, like when they go out in the first handful of series, would not surprise me if Bill Belichick looks at Tim Patrick and says, okay, you had the 100-yard game on Thursday night. Maybe let's look at eliminating you potentially as that big play type of person, or that number one wide receiver, that number one player that we're going to eliminate. I think that it's going to be really interesting what they do, and if they do that, then obviously the Broncos will have to adjust, and of course they're going to have to adjust all game long, and at the same time, for the Broncos' sake, they can't get too cute. And so for Brett Rypien as well, maybe this is also where we start seeing screenplays. We have yet to even see a screenplay to Jerry Jeudy, or plays like maybe this is where we see a screenplay to maybe an Albert O, maybe. I don't know, to get him comfortable a little bit in the passing game as well. So I think that those types of things, especially for Jerry Jeudy and especially for getting your best players and maybe your best available playmakers the ball in their hand, I think that's going to be one of those keys going forward for this game, is that even despite the fact that Bill Belichick wants to eliminate something like your number one option, and maybe that is the running game, I don't know. If they eliminate the running game, then you clearly have to beat them through the air, which would mean that everybody's available at your disposal then. And then at that point, it can free up your running game, it can free up your passing game at that point. So I just think that it's going to be a very... It is always fascinating in playing the Patriots, because you always want to know, okay, what is going to be the potential scheme that changes throughout the game? What's going to end up being the scheme that stays constant throughout the game? Because you just never know with Bill Belichick. Who could that number one guy be? Who could that number one option be? Whatever, or what have you, when you ever play the Patriots.
So real quick, I was able to get his chart up. For passes 20 yards and longer downfield, we took 5 of his 31 attempts were such passes. He had the bomb to Jeudy, that was a 40-yarder. He had another bomb along the left side, but you take those away, he had a total of 8 that were beyond 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. 8 of his 31 pass attempts were beyond the line of scrimmage. So that tells you, like, 23 of his attempts were basically before the sticks, kind of, right? They're trying to keep real short passes, try to keep him on schedule, trying to like get the ball out quick, like I said, right? So that's going to be very, very important, because 3 of his interceptions were on the right side within 15 yards of the line of scrimmage. If you don't think Bill Belichick knows that and is going to be bringing a lot of pressure especially along that left side. Like, Garrett Bowles has to ball out in this game because, like, dude can't be fearful of his blind side and try to force something because he can't see the left, right? So, I mean, we're really going to have to worry. Like, we're going to have to dig into this and get the guys some attempts. No attempts across the middle of the field beyond 15 yards of the line of scrimmage. Mm-hmm. So that safety, if we stick with the same kind of game plan, that safety is not going to be worried about staying home. He's not going to be worried about a crosser because he knows that Rypien's going to want to hit the sideline. And that's going to allow them to maybe be a step quicker than they would otherwise if the entire field was there. So this is on Shurmur to show the Patriots that we're willing to take that shot down the middle of the field. Maybe that is where an Alberto comes into play up the seam and holds that safety accountable more often, right? Just looking at this chart, it says, okay, what am I going to do? Well, I could go too high. I could drop back into zone. I could force him to try to fit it into a window. And I could maybe bring pressure up the middle and see if I can't rattle him and force him to throw it in a place that he doesn't see a guy dropping back. So very, very interesting. I will be glued to see what our play calls are early to maybe see how it gets them out of their base coverage. Because looking at this seems like it would be very easy for a Bill Belichick defense to defend. But again, guy like Deshaun Hamilton, you hit like a quick slant from the slot. Right. Maybe you give a double move and go up the seam when that guy thinks he's dropping back into the zone where that slant's going to be, and the safety isn't staying home because he's worried about Tim Patrick on the sideline, potentially in a cover 2 site situation. Beautiful. That's money. Alberto can get money that way. Deshaun Hamilton can get money that way. If we move Jerry Jeudy into the slot, potentially he can get money that way. So Brett Rypien, you're going to have to be willing to throw the ball deep and down the middle, which is really scary for a guy that doesn't have a lot of experience. But Bill Belichick's defense is probably going to require that going into this game. Can we flip the script real quick and talk about defense real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Defensively, right, the Patriots are going to be out with Gilmore. But on the Broncos side of things, go ahead, Matty. You were going to say something.
Yeah. So looks like Damian Harris is going to be their bell cow potentially this week. I mean, he's the guy that all the people are touting in the fantasy industry. A lot of people, you could say what you want, but the fantasy industry, there's a lot of money involved and a lot of sharp people. A lot of people much more intelligent than me. There, Jarrett Stidham potentially could be the guy this week. Who knows, right? Like, is it going to be Stidham if it's not Cam? Do we really? Yeah,
it's got.
And I mean, oh my gosh, like it's really what's the worst of two evils. Like, they don't really have a lot of good choices either if Cam doesn't go. So they're going to be relying on the running game a ton, which actually has been the strength of our defense so far this season. Unfortunately, we've been kind of a sieve to wide receivers. So let's talk about the wide receiver position. Julian Edelman banged up with that knee. They got N'Keal Harry. They got Damiere Byrd. Jacoby Myers is more of like a special teams type of guy. They really they're not that deep at wide receiver. And they're certainly not deep at the tight end position. N'Keal Harry, he's running a lot of his routes close to the line of scrimmage. It's a lot of screens. It's basically an extension of the running game. Damiere Byrd is the guy that they're really stretching the field with. So with that being said, would you think that it makes more sense to have an Ojemudia like up on N'Keal Harry and in press coverage and trying to use his big body and play up tight there, and maybe using a Callahan on Damiere Byrd going deep, and then you try to just kind of bracket if Edelman is going to be able to play, maybe you put a Kareem Jackson, maybe you even say, you know what, Justin Simmons, this is your job today to help lock down Edelman, and you just hope that the pass rush gets there before Edelman can find a soft spot in the defense. How would you guys start? We'll start with you, Alex. How would you line up if you're the Broncos trying to defend the New England Patriots here?
I mean, mind you, this is a zone defense, but I do this every game. I'm always saying, okay, who's taking who? Right now, I'm taking my strongest, my cornerback that's playing out of his mind as much as that one play might hurt his statistics and Ojemudia. I'm going with OJ on N'Keal Harry. Big body, big cornerback. I'm going 1v1, and I'm getting Callahan back in the slot. So that has been Callahan's really, I mean, not his downfall, but I mean, I just feel like the guy's playing out of position.
Bread and butter.
Yeah, I mean, let's get him back where he made his money. There's a reason why the Broncos signed him. Let's get him back there, and welcome back Devontae Bosby. I mean, the guy has been balling, so let's get him back on the outside, and let's go 1v1 with their not so scary wide receivers. I'm sure they will make me pay for saying that, on Sunday or Monday. But right now, I'm more worried about losing, losing an All-Pro, and then now you're worried about Mike Purcell, who's a little iffy. Maddie, please have some for me, as well as it was a little odd to see Vic Fangio pressure as much as he did with his linebackers. I loved it. But will we see that again, with these run blitzes? Because if we're looking at this game objectively, both teams are going to be playing with their third string quarterback. Mm-hmm. Both teams should be implementing, if you're a fantasy football owner or player, you know that there is no one that you trust on the Patriots other than Tom Brady and that defense. You never, or if, Gronkowski, but he's not there anymore.
Right.
So,
Or Edelman.
Yeah, you don't trust any wide receiver unless it's Edelman here and there if you're playing PPR. Mm-hmm. But mind you, I digress. You don't trust anyone because they're going to spread the ball around. So what I would do is I would focus on that run because just like them, they are iffy about their quarterback. They are going to put the ball in their playmakers' hands, and they don't have many of them. They're going to go with Harris, who Alabama, get it, boy. But yeah, I mean, the guy is coming back, and I mean, he is touted to be, their bell cow for a reason. But Burke, don't sleep on Rexy. The guy has been killing it. So yeah, I mean, right now I would sell out against the run and just force, Stidham. I mean, really, they were excited about him before the season, and they got him into training camp, and we saw what happened there. So I'd say, Stidham, go ahead and try and beat us because right now we're going to sell out against the run.
Yeah, I think on the Broncos side of things, defensively, I will say that piggybacking off of what Alex said, I would much rather have Bryce Callahan back where he's most comfortable in the slot because I think that, and we even saw that trend start to happen on that Thursday night where, do I think that Asang Bassey's a phenomenal talent potentially or a phenomenal find? Absolutely. I think he was a phenomenal find. But it's just, unfortunately, just as that game wore on, the Fangio needed to make that change, and he put in Bosby, and Bosby, clearly, and you could argue, could have closed that game out on multiple different occasions with Darnold if he makes like 2 interceptions really there and near the end of the game. So Bosby's emergence has really helped out this secondary. It's going to end up putting, I believe, that Callahan situation to bed to where he can put him in the slot to be more comfortable. Ojemudia probably will be on N'Keal Harry. My guess is Bosby could be on Bird, is my guess. And then if whoever's in the slot is where you would potentially see Callahan do a lot of that damage. We might see probably a few schematics where Simmons or Kareem might end up helping down in the box or something and kind of helping down as an extra body. We might see that. It is interesting, though, to what you were talking about, Alex, that Fangio brought a lot of the blitzes with the linebackers because statistically, Fangio doesn't blitz a whole lot. I mean, he really doesn't. If you look at just his time from the Chicago Bears alone, he really didn't blitz a whole lot. Now, granted, he had Khalil Mack, and that that will help at least soften the blow somewhat on that, right? But yeah. But I mean, it'll be really interesting, and the fact that Josie Jewell, and despite what they being the Jets, he still played out of his mind. So that should at least give Fangio confidence that, okay, we'll run through it again. And it should exactly be, despite probably what it was with Darnold, it should exactly be the exact same recipe of what they do here with Stidham. Make Stidham beat you with his arm. I mean, just sell out, stop the run with Rex Burkhead and Damian Harris. And if they can do that and force those potential really tough situations for a young quarterback, I mean, there's a decent chance. And I will say this too: they absolutely have to create turnovers. They have to do their best to try and create turnovers. They have been so close, and I know that I'm probably speaking for Michael Ojemudia, of course, but they have been so close to creating a lot of turnovers on the defensive side of the ball, where they have been just inches away, or as Fangio says, death by inches. I mean, they have been inches away from getting those turnovers, and it just feels like one is just about to break the ice on that, to where they're going to just start seeing multiple turnovers game after game after game with that. So they absolutely, and especially with a young quarterback, if they can create that pressure, and if Chubb and company can create that consistent pressure to getting to Stidham or Hoyer, whoever's starting. And to be honest with you, even if it was Hoyer or even if it was Stidham, the game plan should still be the same. I mean, really. I mean, even though Hoyer was a veteran, he looked really, really bad. I mean, if we're being honest, I mean, he did not look like a veteran at all in the game that they had against the Kansas City Chiefs. So if I'm defensively scheming against that, I am absolutely making Brian Hoyer beat us through the air, or Jarrett Stidham beat us through the air.
So a couple of fun things that just dug in on. One, if you're talking about rushing, a lot of the numbers for the Patriots look really good as far as rush success versus the defense, right? So it says, like, doesn't matter if it's been in a gap scheme or a zone scheme or what have you. It's been really good for New England. A lot of that is skewed because Cam Newton is actually their number one running back, especially once you get inside the 5-yard line. And basically, when your quarterback runs the football, that's an extra person, right? Mm-hmm. That's not somebody handing the ball off and not being involved in the play. That's actually the play. You have to get to the quarterback. So that's that, and that for mobile quarterbacks, for running quarterbacks, for big quarterbacks, especially down near the goal line, those numbers are pretty common. We don't have a lot of sample size and game script to go with seeing what the success rate is without Cam because of who they played last week and just what kind of game that was. But so we say sell out to stop the run. Maybe that's not as tall of a task as we think it will be, especially knowing that is the strength of our defense. But looking at the offense, who would you say out of the big three receivers leads the Patriots in snaps every single week of this season? If you have to guess.
Go ahead, Alex.
I mean, is it Edelman?
What do you got? What do you got, Cam?
I'm gonna take a wild card. Is it N'Keal Harry or Bird?
Well, I said of the big three, so you took the other two. That's really going out on a limb there.
Exactly.
So no, it's Damiere Byrd. 94, 88, 98, and 100% of snaps in last week. Edelman, 69, 73.9, 81, and then all the way down to 62. Could Edelman really not be right? I mean, I know that he's got a questionable tag with the knee, but we're seeing him play less than snaps. He is out. He ran the second most routes last week. But so while he's out there, he's pretty much, they're not asking him to block. If he's out there, they're asking him to run routes. Alex, you look like you're getting ready to say something. What does that look like as far as, if we just take those two nuggets? Damiere Byrd's out there all the time, and N'Keal Harry was out there 13% almost more than what Edelman was last week.
Sounds like a lot of smoke and mirrors to me, man. I mean, Edelman is going to get his, but in the end, grand scheme of things, he's no longer that scary dude that you're worried about inside. He's not. He doesn't have Cam. All right, he doesn't have Tom. So I mean, he's not going to scare me as much. This is also a guy that is one concussion away from his entire career being done too. So if I'm really afraid of anyone, it's someone that can really challenge our young cornerback down the field. It's not a hobbled, aging slot wide receiver.
Yeah. And those numbers tell me it's going to be Damiere Byrd because he ran 39 routes compared to 28 for Harry, 30 for Edelman, and just where those routes go, it's a lot of 9 routes. It's a lot of stretching the defense and testing them, especially if they start getting the run going a little bit. Play action becomes a thing, and Damiere Byrd has the speed to get behind a defense. And he actually led them in air yards last week. Now, some of it was out of desperation, sure, but air yards being how much distance is traveled with the target or with the attempt that goes to him. It's a good indicator for guys that have guys like Edelman that have really short routes versus guys that stretch the field. Think Deshaun Jackson has a lot of air yards because they take those deep shots to him. That's just some advanced stats there for you guys. But Damiere Byrd really seems like he might be the guy that we have to be concerned about the most. So he might be the guy we actually need to leave a safety back and keep help over the top for, especially if we're focused on, stopping the run and stopping these screens. The cornerbacks are going to be focused on the flat. They're going to be focused on shooting up and getting the blocking muddled for the wide receiver instead of just giving him, 7-8 yards a pop on a screenplay, which, we see cornerbacks in Fangio's system really be aggressive. And I do agree, you guys saying that, like Callahan playing in the slot could actually really help with the screen game because he can diagnose those things so quickly, and he's not afraid to stick his nose in there and make a tackle. So very good analysis for y'all in wanting to keep him in the slot. So that means that Bosby is actually probably going to be our most important defensive player going into this game. We said it was Deshaun Hamilton in the slot for us on offense. It looks like it's going to be Bosby potentially on the outside on an island with Damiere Byrd. At least that's what the numbers and that's what the scheme and everything is showing me here. So,
and also just even based off pure speed, Bosby makes a lot of sense with Byrd, because if you're talking about a guy that not just has the pure speed but also the pure speed to close out and make breaks on the ball, we saw that obviously in the Thursday night game, where he probably should have made that interception on Darnold. It was very evident that Bosby has enough speed to really keep up with any of those burner type wide receivers.
Yeah, you should see a lot of single high safety in this game, with them selling out versus the run. So as long as no one's beating you deep, you're keeping Byrd in front of you. There's no reason that, anyone in the slot should really go off regardless of who's covering the slot.
Yeah, and if it ends up being a single high safety game, it might end up being maybe a Justin Simmons type game. And I think that we all know that Justin thrives off of those single high safety looks, and it's something he's very comfortable with. And it seems like it's slowly and gradually getting there, where Justin's coming back to his natural form, to what we had seen from last year. It seems like he's getting better. There are still moments where he'll tell you where he probably has not played up to his potential, and he's not played great this year. But if it ends up getting to be a single high safety look, I think that it'll end up being to where it's the comfort zone of Simmons, and especially for a running game too. It's going to help out with Kareem Jackson as well, and to help out in that running game, and potentially even in the middle. As well.
So let's get into some predictions here. Alex, what is your prediction for the final score and the winner of this game on Monday?
I'll say this too. What is your prediction of the game, but also what is your bold prediction? Like, what do you think's going to happen?
Well, I'll give you 2. I think it's fair considering the game looks completely different if Cam Newton's playing. So if Cam's playing, I don't have the Broncos winning. I've got it more as a throttling because there is, the guy is electric. As much as we like to make fun of him for 2015, the guy is back to his electric self, especially with that having one of the GOATs as coach. I'll give him a 30-17 Patriot win. If it is Jarrett Stidham versus Brett Rypien, I mean, we're talking, teens here because I mean you're throwing a third string quarterback out there versus the GOAT. So, but I am going to give the Broncos a win if it is Stidham because Stidham is just that bad. And a bold prediction, if it's Stidham, we are talking about Justin Simmons getting paid once again and him getting at least one turnover that game.
Okay. So, and my guess is you mean, and probably it's not just Stidham, but probably Brian Hoyer as well. Like it would probably be one or the other.
Pick your poison if you're a Patriots fan, but yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Maddie. You can take the next one.
Oh, okay. You want a little more time to think? I see what you're doing.
Yes.
There's a reason why I asked the question so that I can see, oh, he's really nice. He's got manners. He's going last. If I'm Vegas, I'm probably putting this, I don't see a line for it. This feels very much like if Cam doesn't play, this feels like a 38-41 type of game, right? Like as far as total points, it just feels really, really freaking ugly on both sides of the game. I'm gonna say that Cam doesn't play. And I'm going to say that the Broncos win. I'm going to say they win 24-17 here because of a late interception by Justin Simmons that he also takes to the house, which will be my bold prediction.
Okay, so kind of the same bold prediction, except for Justin Simmons will take it to the house.
Pick 6.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I do think the Broncos win, but I will say I don't expect a encore or a same performance of the 37-point burger that we saw against the New York Jets. It's too much to ask for, especially going up against Belichick. And even though we all want it, we all want another 37-point game from Rypien. But I think we're looking at probably a 21-17 game like Maddie, or even in the teens to what you had mentioned, Alex. I think that if I'm being honest, I'll say that the Broncos do win, but I will say it will be 24-21. To where it'll be 24-21. It'll be close. But I will say that it will also end on an interception. But this time, it'll be the rookie. It will be Michael Ojemudia with the interception to at least close out the game. And also, Justin Simmons will get an interception. I think at some point, someone's going to get an interception in this game. It's going to be a matter of who on that Broncos defense.
We've got two coaches with damn near 70 years of defensive football going against third-string quarterbacks. So, yeah, there's little reason for optimism that this game is any bit of a shootout. So, yeah, give me the Broncos 17-13 if it's the third stringers.
Right. Yeah. Oh, man. Well, it's definitely going to be an exciting game just for the simple fact we're coming off of a Broncos win. But it is a little bit disappointing for the sake that the Broncos have to turn right around on a short week and play the Miami Dolphins on a short week. So, of course, the NFL kind of teetering a little bit to the New England Patriots once again. And, I guess that's just the way that the NFL has gone lately. Now with the New England Patriots, but Alex, man, it was awesome having you on. This is not going to be a first and a last either. We're gonna have you on multiple times, and you are a co-host over at the Broncos Brawl podcast. So tell everybody how they can reach out to you. Or
yeah, definitely check us out at Broncos Brawl on the Brawl Network, and definitely hit me up at V_Broncos. My co-host in Byron Chamberlain, two-time NFL Super Bowl winning tight end. You know, I get to rap with that guy usually every night. It's not the best considering he's a Laker fan, so we're going back and forth in the text messages. But right now, I get the last word considering Miami beat him. But yeah, definitely check us out and definitely stick to the Manely Broncos podcast too.
Absolutely. You guys can follow the Manely Broncos podcast on Twitter at Manely Broncos, and you guys can listen to the Manely Broncos podcast over on Spotify, iTunes, as well as Google Podcast, as well as YouTube as well. We are pretty much everywhere on the popular sites that you guys can listen to a podcast. So thank you guys so much for listening to the Manely Broncos podcast, and saddle up with us as we have another one in store. Hopefully coming off of a Broncos victory, Maddie.
Absolutely. Let's go get them. Saddle up.